Have Chetanwaze with us.
Good morning.
Cheta is at Checkster on Twitter. And then we have Justin EJ with us as well.
Morning, guys.
Justin is at Justin EJ on Twitter. You can follow us at Smooth981 FM and send in your comments using the hashtag freshly pressed 981.
All right, and you can send messages through WhatsApp. That WhatsApp number is 0809 That's 0809 We're live on YouTube, so you can subscribe as well as watch us live and leave a comment with that on the comment section of the YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. Our first story is from the Punch newspaper. Justin, the police in Katsina State revealed yesterday that they arrested the owner of a rehabilitation center in Daura, where over 300 inmates were being subjected to inhumane and degrading treatment. One of the people, one of the inmates, said different inmates actually from different parts of the country, including Katsina as well as Niger Republic. Some are yet to be identified. One of them said his father sent him there for him to be cured of stealing. Interesting story and revelation. Please take us through this.
Words matter. So sometimes when the media, so the publishing houses uses certain words, I tend to wonder why. Is it scripted or are we just trying to put a damper on the real issues? So they keep using the word inmates. No, these were not inmates. They were not in prison. They were not committed to a facility. So this is the whole Almajiri street kids syndrome. This is one of those centers that train the Almajiri boys. And so 300 of them were found there. And the police, again, continue to be reactionary. There is no way you had a center with 200 boys in a town that I imagine Daura is as small as.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the president's hometown, but I don't think it's that big.
Yes.
So I don't see how you have a center with 300 of those boys milling around and the entire community wasn't aware. And when I say community, it's an oblique reference to the police in the area. So how do you tell me that, oh, you just found them? They've been there. What have you guys been doing? Did you turn a blind eye, or is there a renewed zeal to say, okay, the positive side of this thing to me is, because I'm not fooled, I know that this is not a surprise. We've known that the people in this area must have known what was going on. But apparently the police is waking up and probably they are no longer fettered or shackled and they are free to bust up what's going on. But then when you read into the story, it says that the boys actually revolted. So it's not like the police went there to bust up anything. The boys revolted and created an uproar, and that's what led to the police coming there and making it a photo up right now. But
I'm glad you highlighted that because there's no smoke without fire.
Exactly. It said the teachers escaped, and the usual police phrase: "We shall get all of them
And bring them to
they will face the full wrath of." Well, I've seen the movie Wrath of the Titans. I'm waiting to see Wrath of the
Daily Times is next. Please keep your comments coming in regarding these stories.
Benga, of such rehabilitation centers do we have in the north? There is so much dysfunction in the Nigerian society. This type of centers are breeding centers for extremism. That's another aspect. And then Emeka says, since when did car, laptops, and phones become exhibits?
All right, and that leads us very nicely into the next story from Daily Times. According to this report, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission have arrested 94 internet fraudsters in Oshobo nightclub. They said this nightclub is a secret hideout for suspected internet fraudsters, that they got wind of intelligence reports revealing a planned party for those who wanted to celebrate their recent loot. Your thoughts, Justin?
Well, two ways to look at this. So it's all well and good to continue the fight against the scourge of fraud and 419, Yahoo. But I would like for the government to also take a proactive approach to dealing with this unemployment that has left the door wide open for people to be distasteful. So we keep hearing of these raids by the EFTC. 31 people arrested today, 24 people arrested tomorrow. One of the pretexts of every repressive regime is to create a bogeyman and use that as a context to clamp down on people's rights. You go to a nightclub, arrest everybody in sight, you impound cars, and then you investigate after. That's a severe violation of rights. If there are specific people, you've conducted an investigation, you have the facts, you have the details, that's all well and good. But we know who we are. You go in, cast a wide net, everybody yourself, come and explain yourself.
It's called fishing.
Exactly, fishing. And I don't know that it's good for us on the long run. You are basically undermining the laws of the land. You are teaching people that the laws really don't matter, that they don't have rights. And it's not good for us. And I don't know what, so you hear of, okay, so in this article, they've said scores of sophisticated mobile phones. A mobile phone by nature is a sophisticated device. So hyping it, you hear all these kind of phrases in the news reports coming out of here. Oh, sophisticated mobile phones. See, years back, I started my career in the banking sector pretty young, and I looked younger than my age. I was traveling Port Harcourt to Benin, and I was stopped. I had a BMW 3 Series, which I bought with a combination of contributions we were taking in the office, and my mom chipped in at the time. And this police guy stopped me, and the relevance of this story is he attacked me, and at some point made a point to the reference, how many years I don't date for a small boy like you, they drive BMW. That thing left a mark on me. I'm scared of police people, You can't teach young people that being successful or showing outward signs of success is a crime. And there's a thin line, and the EFCC is beginning to cross that line.
Beginning to.
Thank you so much, Justin. I think that last line is something that young people are not encouraged to aspire to be successful, as they're seen as fraudsters if they dare show signs of wealth.
Certain things, yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
94 suspects. Just spoke close to the intelligence of that.
Yes, absolutely. Let's still stay on security matters here, and talking about human rights, rule of law. According to Nigeria's customs chief, Hamid Lawal Ali, who is the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, he says that security is more important than rule of law, human rights. And this report is from the Times. He said that Nigerians should forget the rule of law and constitutional protections of their fundamental rights where matters of security are concerned. He said that, this statement, of course, as you would imagine, would trouble legal experts and rights activists. And here is a direct quote from him, Cheta. When it comes to security, all laws take a back seat. Please, can you take us through the story?
That's exactly what I said.
It's interesting what Mr. Ali has said, because even before security, there's something called order. It's under the Constitution that he derives his authority. So saying that the Constitution takes a back seat to security is basically turning logic on its head. So let's consider a hypothetical scenario now, because Nigerians need to understand. Some people, like Mr. Ali, will tell us that security is the most basic function of the government, but it doesn't work that way. The most basic function of the government really is adjudication.
Okay.
When me and you, if the 5 of us in this room now just sit together and start working together, by our very nature as human beings, at some point there will be a disagreement.
Yes.
We need a trusted authority to resolve that disagreement. That's adjudication. That's basic trusted authority will resolve it. We need to trust the impartiality of that authority so that we will all surrender our sovereignty, as it were, to that authority to adjudicate. When that authority can adjudicate between us, the authority now needs a means to enforce whatever decision it takes, which is when we start to outsource some of these things like provision of security, provision of the tools of violence to that authority. And then that authority now needs a means in order to pay for its services, which is where things like taxation begin to come in. So you can see there's a logical concept, but the underlying thing that pulls all of that together is called law. you cannot be saying that security supersedes the law and human rights and all of that. That's a complete nonsense.
Yes.
There's no other way to describe this in the English language.
I mean, wouldn't this
There is
give,
actually a word for it. It's called fascism.
right, what I was going to ask, wouldn't this give license to government agencies who
It
were already
has given
complaining?
license because Ali has broken laws in giving this statement.
Mhm.
He was saying it in order to justify continued closure and permanent closure of the border, which we'll come to in the next story.
Yeah.
That is not his job as the head of customs. He has no standing to do that. It's a job for the National Assembly.
Did he ever respond to the summons of the National Assembly? When he was appointed, he was made.
No,
he refused to appear
in uniform. He completely undermined the authority.
Yes, I was going to say that he's not the first person to undermine the authority of the legislators. As we know, a number of high-profile government agents who have refused to appear before the National Assembly when they've been summoned. So he's not the first. We've seen these things happen. We've seen these things happen, there've been no consequence so far.
The
so
service chiefs are, because I know it's the service chiefs you want to talk about.
Even beyond them.
No, check the records. They took a cue from Hamid Ali.
All right.
All right. So Gbenga Akamu here says, we believe the bosses of Ali should call him to order. In order to, it's not proper to advance this type of thinking. The Constitution is supreme and everything must bow before it. In a sane society, Sha. Chika Gina from Marina says, why are we troubled by the statements of Kola Ali? PMB told us that national security supersedes rule of law and some SAN came out to defend it. Thank you very much for your comments. Let's go to the next story, which links very closely with the last one. The Central Bank of Nigeria's governor, the CBN governor, Emefiele, he is explaining the border closure, the benefits, and highlighting the issues that may arise if Nigerians decide to act unpatriotic, in quotes, by increasing the price of rice, amongst other goods, or hoarding it. Jetta, your thoughts on this story? The headline reads, border closure, CBN appeals to rice millers, stakeholders not to increase price, according to Punch.
I know I'm not an economist, though. Just a field engineer that somehow managed to start doing test on challenge since Adam Smith first penned the whole concept in 1756 or thereabouts. Now we have the CBN governor, who, professor of economics, if memory serves me, trying to rewrite the law of supply and demand. Basically, Nigeria does not produce enough rice to meet internal consumption. The shelf is made up by imports. You have closed the border so that these imports will not come in.
Well, he said, sorry to interject, that imported rice into the country was chemicalized for preservation, therefore not good for consumption.
Can we continue with the serious talk?
Yes, please.
Nigeria does not produce enough rice for its own internal consumption. You close scarcity. Naturally, what happens is when there's a scarcity, prices rise up. We are already seeing in the prices of basic food items in the markets. Anybody listening to this show will know that truth. Anybody who denies that fact needs to have himself checked.
No, needs to go to the marketing.
As I was saying, this is basically a return to what President Buhari did back in 1984 when he was military head of state. Back then, he closed the borders and they remained closed until he was shuffled out of office. People begged and begged him to reopen the borders, and he refused. He kept changing the reason for closing the borders. First, he said the borders were to stop politicians from escaping. Then he changed it to security reasons. Then he changed it to smuggling, which they brought up now. Then he changed it to change of currency. The American government even sent people to beg him. He refused. Eventually, Babangida that reopened the borders. The effect of that closure of border was that there was something for those who there was something called essential commodities. Items became scarce, And when items became scarce, prices began to rise.
Right, yes.
So what the government did at the time was that they sent bands of soldiers into the markets to force traders to sell goods that they had purchased at higher cost at less than cost price to keep the illusion of there was a government price list. They sent people, they sent soldiers into the market to enforce that. So of course, naturally, the traders locked up. They stopped selling. So things became scarce, and people began to starve. Now, consider that in history, there have only been, as in, for economic reasons, it's only 3 times that I can recall a country closing its doors. India, 1943, the Second World War. It led to the Bengal famine. Khmer Rouge, Cambodia, 1975. It led to a famine. 1 point something million people dead. China, what Mao Zedong called the Great Leap Forward. You know what it did? It led to the Great Famine. 13.5 million people dead. When you are a big country, you will naturally tend to produce a little less than you can consume. It's simple economics. And there's nothing that we will do that will bend those laws of economics. We are not special.
All right. Thank you, Cheta.
On border closure, here's a comment from me. He said, border closure simply puts treating the symptoms only without considering the root cause of the effect, or the side effect, he said. Benga Kamu says it's hypocritical and tongue-in-cheek for the CBN governor to beg sellers of rice not to increase prices. We cannot produce enough rice yet. Actions have consequences. Prices are just the starting points, just starting to rise. Christmas is around the corner, and then we will see. And that's the fear of a lot of everyone. Let's go to this next story. From Vanguard newspaper, court order interim forfeiture of 116 million naira in constituency project scam. Justice A.R. Mohammed of the Federal High Court in Abuja sat yesterday and ordered the interim forfeiture of this sum. It says there's alleged proceeds of crime linked to the non-execution of constituency project awarded to One Hamza Brow and Handshaking Ventures Limited, both joints in this case, funded by the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria on behalf of some federal lawmakers. The spotlight is on them now. What do you see? How do you see this turning out, Justin?
So the gentleman's name is Hamza Barau. Okay. And another notable person, you just got it, eh?
No,
that's his name.
It's okay.
Another notable person here is someone whose name we've encountered before, and Honorable Herman Hembe. People will remember Herman Hembe from his bus stop with Madam Aruma.
It was a bus stop. He toasted her, she refused, and he got angry.
What do you call it now?
It's not bus stop.
Okay, sorry now.
They didn't get on the bus.
They didn't get the bus. So anyway, Herman Hembe is named as one of the beneficiaries of the project of this 116 million that is being the article doesn't tell us how much the entire constituency project allocation was, but the amount that the forfeiture order relates to is 116 million. But it goes on to say that Herman Hembe, Honorable Benjamin Aboho, one Udende Emmanuel, and Oka Jeff. Others are Honorable Abubakar Mahmoud Wambai and Honorable Mohammed Madawate. So these are legislators who had oversight function over this agency, and they basically awarded this contract. The contract wasn't executed. They shared the money and then went ahead to issue a certificate of completion to this company. So the EFCC has obtained an order to forfeit the money. But my question is, where are all these people who have honorable in front of their name who were involved? How many of them are facing trial?
How many of them have been rounded up?
How many of them have been rounded up with their sophisticated vehicles and sophisticated mobile phones? The article is silent on that point, but they have collected the money.
But based on this court order, where do you see this going? Like, what would be the desired result?
I'd like to see them all in jail. I'd like to see them all paraded the way we see 25, 30-year-old boys being paraded as advanced fee fraudsters.
Yeah.
This is the worst kind of fraud.
All right. Thank you very much, Justin. We have comments.
This one, please add your names to your messages so we can take them. Benga Kamu says, constituency projects, we all know it's a big scam. It is the dream, the sell that these projects will change lives when nothing is ever done. Thank you, Benga. Kule from Gagada says, good morning, guys. The closure of the border is a lazy man's way of solving this peculiar type of problem. The rice issue has gone beyond price. Quality is an issue now. I ate a local rice on Sunday and it was full of stones. Thank you, Kumi.
Thank you very much, Kuni. Let's go on to this investigation from the Premium Times. Now, in the wake of the sex braids expose by the BBC Africa report and Kiki Modi's undercover reportage, we go on to bribery, bail for sale, Lagos police station where innocent civilians are jailed and criminals are recycled. Now, this is from journalist Fisayo Shoyombo, who spent 2 weeks in detention, 5 days in the police cell and 8 as an inmate in Ikoyi prisons. And he did this to track corruption in Nigeria's criminal justice system, beginning from the moment of arrest by the police to the point of release from prison. Now, Cheta, we've talked a number of times about the state of the Nigerian prisons, or shall I say correctional facility, as the name has been changed by the president. But looking at this report, it's very detailed. I would encourage anyone and everyone to please go and read it from the Premium Times.
That is part 1 of 3.
Part 1 of 3, about 5 pages. So please, can you just take us through the main points of this report and what we can, get from this?
I beg to, if you permit me, I want to deviate from the main point of the report. If I'm available when all 3 have come out, then I would. In short, it's a Lagos Talks topic.
Yes.
That's the honest truth. It's
Yes,
something
right.
that you sit down for an hour.
It's a 42-page report, by the way.
Fisayo decrease. That's just, and I'm going to see him tomorrow actually. And when I'll tell him again, he took great personal risk to do this, because from my own knowledge of the Nigerian police system, from what everybody I think knows, and from what NBS data has shown, the Nigerian police is probably the most rotten part of the Nigerian states. He could very, very easily have disappeared into the system and not come out again. Very, very easily. Fisayo tends to take some of these risks. I think that was the reason why he eventually left the ICRR. They were too tame for the kind of projects that he wanted to do.
Okay.
Last year, he drove a car. That was in May last year. He drove a car from Abuja to Lagos without any papers. With none. Abuja to Lagos and back to Abuja.
Well, he was trying to prove that he was.
And then he was recording.
Yeah, bribed his way
Did the story. Trying to prove the fact that he could do that. Essentially, this is the kind of thing then these customs will come and tell us who's smuggling. These were all there were customs people, there were military people, there were police people. He caught everything on camera. He put down for story.
Now that's the thing that we talk about. We had these exposes, and
which is my deviation from the meat of this story. And I feel that Fisayo takes all this risk going never born. There are a lot of good investigative journalists in this country. You have Fisayo, you have Nicholas Ibekwe, you have Samuel Ogunzikwe, you have Nkechi Modi, you have Jafar, the Ganduje guy that is now on the run. You have Ahmad Salkida. And what's the outcome of their work? They put out this great work. We talk about it for one day, and then we move on. The only time that something seems to happen is when a foreign organization. So, for example, Nkechi Modi had to. She works with the WFM.
Yes.
But she had to get the BBC essentially to finance her sex for grades report. And it was only after the power of the BBC was behind her that people actually started talking about it. Whereas, who remembers Monica Osage? I said all of these have been talked about. Nicholas Ibekwe 4.5 years ago did a major story on sex for grades. Nothing happened. Codeine. Rona Meyer did sweet codeine.
Yes.
And then suddenly the next day codeine was banned. What people forget was that The Guardian had a major expose, including TV documentary on codeine 6 months before. Nobody said anything. There's so much more to list that Nigerian investigative journalists have brought out. The senator that assaulted a woman, what has become of him? He's still making laws. The soldiers that killed policemen, what has happened? Ganduje, cutting grass, Babachir, the Ikoyi. I think there are so many things that it's frustrating.
I'm glad you talk about that. Can we then link this to our next story from the Premium Times, an Amnesty International report talking about 19 journalists attacked in Nigeria within 9 months. So they released the report on the treatment of journalists. And then you asked the question earlier on that, journalists' lives being at risk, taking risks.
Some of the journalists
Yes.
that I mentioned in my earlier stuff, Samuel Ogundipe and Jafar. Samuel was arrested, and they put him in appalling conditions to try to force him to give up his sources. The police, and then there were also false charge sheets. See, when you have a rise in attacks on journalists, it tells you that repression is on the rise. So the very people who will bring all of this to light come under attack. Nigeria's so-called democracy is eating up the oxygen of independent voices, and they are becoming endangered. The Amnesty report shows that very clearly. And it is time for us to tell ourselves the truth. We are entering a very repressive state where our constitutional right to free speech is under threat. Abba Jalingo, Steve Keferson, Jones Abiri, Samuel Ogundipe, Jafar, Ohima Amaize. You can name, there are so many more. Abba.
Thank you very much.
Uche here reacts to the story, the earlier analysis on economics and how the country, with the comments of the CBN governor. He said, my views against Cheta's position on laws of demand and supply. Book theories may not suffice realities in a number of situations.
Let's have this conversation in 6 months.
He said, the theories we read from impose tariffs and facilitate local productions with incentives. China, US, and are clear examples. Imports at bigger tariffs is allowed in as long as they are not through any porous borders. Isn't that what it amounts to? Same as the current trade wars between US and China. Have you seen the video of local rice rebagged in foreign rice bags? Please let's put our theories into local perspectives. Thank you, Uche, for your comments. We take more.
Can I retort?
No, Cheta.
Gbenga says we never pay attention to news reports carried out by Nigerians, especially on public officials. They do nothing. Is water off their backs, he says. And Yinko says, good morning, guys. Chetana, wow, that's so brilliant. I dislike how we do not encourage our own journalists to keep jumping around when BBC and CNN carry the same stories.
And then I think just to highlight as well, protecting our journalists as well should be paramount. But let's move on.
Off my microphone, come off your own. Still yourself.
All right, let's go on to our final story. Fresh crisis in Buhari's home. Aisha battles Dara family from the Punch newspaper. Justin, very quickly, take us through this story on the fresh crisis erupting at President Muhammadu Buhari's home.
Well, I would want to respect Mr. President's right to handle his family affairs. But the angle I will look at here is, number one, the young lady who came out, who leaked the video and came out to address the press conference is completely out of line. Your father is not an appointee of
So who is the young lady?
Mama Daura became now.
Yes, I just want to state this,
Fatima Daura,
thank you. And Maman Daura is the nephew of the president.
The nephew of the president. Now, Mr. Alhaji Maman does not have any known portfolio. He's a relative to the president.
Okay.
Mr. President has given him an apartment in the State House. Now, I could go off on that tangent alone. You can't put your extended family members on public welfare. Do you understand? You can't house them at my expense. I'm a tax-paying citizen. According to the budget for next year, I can see that they're budgeting, is it 9 billion or something for feeding in Aso Rock. You shouldn't be housing people like that, but let's leave that alone. You've done that. The young woman is completely out of line. You're addressing the first lady of the country. You're not even the direct beneficiary of this grace by Mr. President. It's your father. You are an adult. You shouldn't be in the State House. And then you go there and you have the effrontery to be issuing statements about the first lady. She should be flogged.
We don't promote violence, please. Ozzy here has a complaint. She asked actually a legitimate question. Said, due to the terrible road situation around Navy Town, for instance, she says, can I take the government to court if I lose my job when I spend half the day abroad on the road? Guys?
Huh?
Can I take the government to court if I lose my job when I spend half the day on the road?
That's
Try.
in terms of the road, the state of the roads in
Terrible road
Lagos.
situation in Lagos.
You can try.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. We'll take these stories on to Lagos Talks 901. So please stay tuned at 9 o'clock when we are able to dissect in more detail and have more time to actually analyze one of the news headlines from today. But a big thanks to our analysts. Thank you, Cheta, for coming this morning. Cheta is at Checksta on Twitter. Thank you, Justin EJ at Justin EJ on Twitter. And thanks to everyone who sent in messages. All right, Lagos, we're going to break at 8:15. We're back here with a Grapevine 981. It's on a lighter note as we look at some entertainment stories from around the world.